Hasbro, the owner of Wizards of the Coast and subsequently the IP of Baldur's Gate, recently revealed some of their plans for the future, not just for Baldur's Gate as a franchise, but for the entirety of the D&D gaming branch. This, in turn, started a pretty massive debate that's currently raging across various forums of the internet, and we'll be diving into what's going on right now, and later on in the video, I'll be sharing some of my own thoughts on it. Before we do though, I'd be thankful if you could drop a like if you want to see more content like this, and don't forget to subscribe for all your future Baldur's Gate and RPG updates. So, what's the situation? Well, in a recent interview between GamesIndustry.biz and the head of Hasbro's digital product development, Dan Ayoub, Dan revealed that Hasbro has already invested over $1 billion into various projects that's currently in the works, saying, "The biggest thing to take away, which is honestly a little surprise to a lot of people, is that Hasbro is in fact making video games. And we have a considerable investment in our studio's structure. We've got over $1 billion in games right now being developed." In said interview, Dan also brings up another game currently in development based on Snake Eyes, the famous ninja from the G.I. Joe franchise, which is supposedly going to be an edgier game reminiscent of the Batman Arkham games and Sekiro. Aside from this Snake Eyes game and a few other projects, another game that gets brought up in the article is the upcoming sci-fi RPG, Exodus, which is being developed by Archetype Entertainment, which in turn is led by a couple of veteran developers from BioWare. Now, the real interesting part of the interview and the reason why this topic has suddenly exploded is the part where Dan Ayoub talks about the success of Baldur's Gate 3, saying, "One of the great things we took from the success of Baldur's Gate 3 is that people really like a great, well-executed D&D game. So we've got something like that. And with Snake Eyes, while it's not a new IP, it's hopefully going to be a shot in the arm to the G.I. Joe franchise, and we can do some new things and express it in different ways in video games than we have traditionally." When asked for a reason as to why Hasbro is in game development for the long haul now, Dan responded with, "Over $1 billion is in video game development right now, and that is just these studios. That's to say nothing of the other game investments that are happening. Definitely I've seen the company put its actions around its words in terms of building these studios around strong leaders, thinking about the long game as well. We've got a portfolio that goes much larger than anything we're talking about right now." And so he's hinting here that Hasbro is going to be investing way more than just $1 billion like they've done so far, meaning that this move is even bigger than we might think. In comparison, Hasbro brought in a total of $5.86 billion last year, meaning that this huge investment is definitely taking a decent chunk out of their evidently heavy purse. He then brought up Baldur's Gate 3 again, saying, "For the company and for myself, that was a fantastic example of execution of the brand in an authentic way, and the players came. They loved it and are asking for more, and I think you can see that with other brands as well. I'm old enough to remember a plethora of Star Wars games that maybe weren't what we hoped they would be as a gamer, but when those high-quality titles came, the audience came with them. The appetite is there if we're authentic and we're focused on quality, and that is absolutely the priority, and in many ways the reason for the genesis behind these internal studios." Now, as a knee-jerk reaction, all of this sounds pretty good on the surface because I think all of us would like to see more games like Baldur's Gate 3 in the future, whether they're set in the Forgotten Realms or not. Unfortunately, this announcement from Hasbro has raised quite a few eyebrows in the gaming industry. First of all, only at the end of last year, Hasbro revealed that they were cutting 1,100 job positions, and earlier in 2023, they had already laid off 800 workers. Now, we all know by now that the games industry has been plagued by layoffs quite heavily for more than a year, but it's honestly pretty strange that Hasbro would lay off this many people only to reveal that they're expanding on the gaming front. Now, you might remember one specific studio that has been calling out this type of behavior, and which has strongly championed for publishers and studios to not make these type of knee-jerk decisions, which inevitably will always lead to massive layoffs in the end. And that itty-bitty little studio is none other than Larian, the very studio behind Baldur's Gate 3 and whose very CEO quite literally called out publishers for causing this massive crisis the gaming industry is going through. You might remember his speech during the Game Developers Conference, which took the internet by storm.
I've been fighting with publishers my entire life, so it's like, and I keep on seeing, I keep on seeing the same mistakes over and over and over, and it's always the quarterly profits.
Now, Sven's words go hand in hand with something he had mentioned in a tweet before, this being that almost every single person he had worked with from Wizards of the Coast to make Baldur's Gate 3 a reality had all been laid off, saying, "I also want to thank Wizards D&D and specifically the D&D team for giving us carte blanche. I'm really sorry to hear so many of you were let go. It's a sad thing to realize that of the people who were in the original meeting room, there's almost nobody left. I hope you all end up well." Then not too long ago, Swen Vincke revealed in an interview with GameSpot that Larian would not be making any future Baldur's Gate games. Neither would they be working on any D&D game in any capacity. This, of course, has made people suspicious that this could be because of a rift that has been created by Hasbro's treatment of the former team Swen had worked with, which Swen decided to clarify on Twitter after having read various Reddit threads about the situation, saying, "Reading the Reddit threads, I would like to clear up something. WOTC is not to blame for us taking a different direction. On the contrary, they really did their best and have been a great licensor for us, letting us do our thing. This is because it's what's best for Larian." Now, you may have noticed that he didn't mention Hasbro at all here, and that's because Wizards of the Coast, again, is owned by Hasbro. Hasbro, at the end of the day, makes the final decisions. This has since been picked up by quite a few people. As an example, Twitter user Dominic Terrason said, "Hasbro announces we are going to be spending tons of money on games like BG3, just after firing almost everyone at WOTC involved in the project and burning that bridge so thoroughly that Larian came out saying, 'We absolutely will not be doing any more D&D. Bye, corporations.'" Now, while Larian or Swen didn't say anything like this in Dominic's wording here, I'd be lying if I said that this isn't the picture that's getting painted in my head too. When you really look at this major announcement by Hasbro, it almost seems like a little tone deaf after everything that's been going on with the industry, not to mention after the constant barrage of callouts from people over at Larian. As an example, Larian's director of publishing, Michael Dowse, has on several occasions communicated specific issues that the industry overall is struggling with. Just after this news came out, Michael went on to comment on yet another layoff happening across the industry, saying, "The large corporate cycle is just gushing about people, culture, the human element, teamwork, and pride. And when the operational failures lead to massive layoffs, the human element is so deliberately thrown away. The mask peeled off. Corporations do not care about you." Now, this Twitter thread goes on, but at the end of the day, Michael, Swen, and the entirety of Larian has time and time again shown how much they despise the corporate workings of the industry. And while the news about Hasbro expanding rapidly to make more games like Baldur's Gate 3 might seem great on the surface, I can't help but feel like they're taking the wrong lesson here. Baldur's Gate 3 is such a good game because most of Larian seemed passionate about the entire project. They wanted to make it. Hell, they had to license the IP off of Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast in order to make it. That's how much Swen and Larian wanted to tell this story. Hopefully, the studios and devs that Hasbro are employing now are equally as passionate about their projects, like that of Archetype Entertainment that's currently working on Exodus, and according to the studio head James Olin, Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro has essentially given Archetype free reign on whatever they want to do. So here's hoping for the best when it comes to that game at least. That said, I wouldn't be holding out hope for the fourth entry to be in any way better than Baldur's Gate 3, simply because of the passion Larian has shown while developing this game and their excellent relationship and communication with their longtime supporters and players. And trust me, Baldur's Gate 4 is definitely happening after the success of BG3. Question is, will the wait be worth it, or should we just be looking forward to Larian's next projects? Leave your thoughts down below as always, and have a great day. Mr. Olton, signing out.